You know those moments you play over and over in your head? The ones where time slows down, not because something magical is happening, but because your heart is cracking wide open? This was one of those moments. I gave my parents a luxurious one-week trip to Europe with me. First-class flights, 5-star hotels, private tours, a once-in-a-lifetime experience. It wasn't just a vacation, it was my love letter to them, a thank you wrapped in hotel confirmations and printed itineraries. But in the morning, I picked them up to head to the airport. Everything changed. They stood on the porch, suitcases ready, smiles wide, but something felt off. Then my mom stepped forward, clutching her bag like she couldn't wait to get going. "Your sister needed some rest," she said with that saccharine smile she always used when delivering bad news. "So we decided to take her instead." I blinked, thought maybe I'd misheard. Then I saw her, Lauren, emerging from the house like she owned the moment, dragging her suitcase like she'd just won a prize she hadn't earned. My jaw clenched as I tried to keep my voice steady. "What's going on?" "Oh, Violet," my mom sang, like this was some minor inconvenience. "Lauren's been so stressed. She really needs this trip. You understand, right?" Understand? My chest burned. My lungs forgot how to breathe. I stared at them, silent, the weight of years of being second best crashing down all at once. I'd spent 2 years planning this trip, saving every extra dollar, working late shifts, skipping birthdays, sacrificing sleep. And just like that, I was being replaced by someone who didn't even ask to go. Lauren didn't even pretend to feel guilty. "Thanks for understanding, sis," she said, her voice sticky sweet, like she was already sipping espresso under the Eiffel Tower. I looked to my dad, hoping for some kind of decency, but he just handed me his suitcase and looked at the ground. Unreal. "This was supposed to be our trip," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Well, it still is," my mom smiled. "Just with Lauren instead. Just with Lauren." As if that sentence didn't stab me in the chest. She brushed it off like it was no big deal. "Don't make this a big deal, Violet. Your sister really needs a break. But what about me? I am Violet. And for the past 2 years, I had poured my soul into this trip. Every reservation, every meal, every museum ticket was a piece of me trying to say, I love you, I see you, I want to make you feel special." But standing in the driveway, watching Lauren casually toss her suitcase into the back seat of my car, something inside me snapped. And maybe, just maybe, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I swallowed the pain, forced a brittle smile, and said flatly, "Let's get going then." If they wanted Lauren, they could have her, but they were about to find out what happens when the family's fixer finally stops fixing. The ride to the airport was dead silent, aside from Lauren's obnoxious chatter. "Oh my gosh, Mom, did you see that TikTok about Paris? I'm going shopping the second we land." She was giddy, oblivious, entitled, and I was done. My hands clenched the steering wheel, my fingernails dug into the leather, but I didn't say a word. My mom just chuckled. "Of course, honey. We'll figure it out." Figure it out? There was no we anymore. At one point, my dad muttered from the back seat, "Thank you for driving us, Violet. I know this probably feels unusual." Unusual? That's the word he picked? I met his eyes in the rearview mirror and said coolly, "Unusual. That's an interesting way to put it, Dad." He shifted awkwardly in his seat. Silence again. Then Lauren leaned forward, all innocence and fakeness. "You're not mad, right? I mean, this is so big of you, letting me go. I could never have afforded it." "Of course you couldn't." I pressed my lips into a tight smile. "Of course, Lauren." Enjoy the trip. But in my mind, I was already planning, already calculating, already done. By the time we got to the airport, I was seconds away from unraveling. I helped unload their luggage like a robot. My mom hugged me. "Thank you for understanding, sweetheart. This means so much to Lauren." I nodded. "Sure, Mom." And Lauren? She beamed like she'd just won a prize she didn't earn. "Thanks, Violet. You're the best." I watched them disappear into the terminal, my insides twisted with betrayal and heartbreak. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I got in my car, drove home, and logged into every account I used to book the trip. Hotel, canceled, tours, refunded, airline upgrades, removed. And as the confirmation emails rolled in, a strange calm washed over me. They wanted to take Lauren? Fine. Let them see what a trip without me really looks like. Let them figure out Paris on their own, in budget hotels, with no dinner reservations and no private tours. I was done being the doormat, and that was just the beginning. The calls started the moment their plane touched down in Paris. Buzz, buzz, buzz. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Missed calls, voicemails, text after frantic text. I didn't even flinch. Instead, I sat on the edge of my bed, unpacking the suitcase I'd packed so carefully for the trip that was never mine. Each folded dress and pair of walking shoes felt like a joke, like the punchline to a cruel family comedy where I was the forgotten understudy. The buzzing grew louder, more urgent. I sighed, picked up the phone. From Mom. "Violet, what's going on? The hotel says there's no reservation. Call me immediately." "Violet, this isn't funny. Fix this now." A laugh escaped me, sharp, involuntary. Fix it. After what they pulled, they really thought I was going to swoop in and save the day? Not this time. The next call was from Lauren, of course. I didn't answer, straight to voicemail. Her voice exploded from my phone, smug and whiny, soaked in entitlement. "Violet, this is so petty. We're stuck here because of you. You need to call the hotel and fix it. Now." I rolled my eyes and deleted the voicemail without a second thought. Let her suffer. For years, I was the one who cleaned up after them, patched up every oversight, handled every missed bill, rearranged every broken plan. I was the family's safety net. Not anymore. Eventually, I answered one of the calls, mostly to shut them up. My mom's voice crashed through the speaker like a tidal wave of rage. "Violet, what did you do? The hotel says the reservation was canceled. None of the tours are booked. What is going on?" I let her scream, let her fury fill the air like smoke, and then I calmly dropped the match. I canceled them. There was a pause, like her world had tilted just a little. Then her voice dropped to a hiss. "Why would you do that?" "Oh, I don't know," I said, my tone dripping with sarcasm. "Maybe because you decided to take Lauren on my trip, the one I spent 2 years planning and paying for. You're lucky I even drove you to the airport." She snapped back. "We thought you'd understand." "Understand what?" I barked, my voice finally cracking from everything I'd held back. That my work meant nothing? That my love, my effort, my years of sacrifice didn't matter because Lauren needed a little break? "Guess what, Mom? I don't understand. And I don't care to." I hung up. I turned off my phone. And for the first time in years, I felt the kind of silence that doesn't ache. It heals. That night, I slept like a baby. But peace? It doesn't last long in a family like mine. By morning, the barrage returned. Ping, 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 missed calls, texts, voicemails, one after another like little bombs of guilt detonating in my inbox. I ignored them at first. I vacuumed the house, paid a few bills. I made myself a smoothie. Bliss. But curiosity, it's a sneaky little thing. By evening, I caved, opened the messages. From Mom. "You've gone too far. Your sister's in tears. Your father is furious. We can't get into any of the hotels you booked." From Lauren. "You're acting like a child. I don't get why you're making this such a big deal. Just fix it already." From Dad. "We need to talk. This isn't right." And there it was again, me being told I was wrong, that I needed to fix it, that I had disappointed them. For years, I'd twisted myself into knots to keep them happy, but now that I'd stopped, they were unraveling. So I poured a cup of tea, sat at the kitchen table, let the steam rise and swirl while I let the anger simmer. How dare they demand I save the very trip they stole from me? How dare they act like I was the villain in a story I wrote for them? The next call came minutes later, and this time, I answered. "Violet!" My mom snapped before I could say a word. "This isn't funny anymore. We're stranded. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? I took a slow sip of my tea. Let the silence hang between us. Embarrassing? I said finally. You think this is embarrassing? Try saving for years, planning every detail, and being told you're not even invited. Stop being dramatic, she shouted. Lauren needed this more than you. Then let her figure it out, I snapped. You made your choice, Mom. You wanted to take Lauren instead of me. Fine, but don't expect me to fund her vacation. There was a pause. Then her voice dropped into something sharper, colder. We're family, Violet. We don't do this to each other. And I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was absurd. Funny, I said. I was just thinking the same thing. In the background, I heard Lauren whining like a kid denied a toy. Mom, just hang up on her. She's being impossible. That was it. I let my voice go cold, ice in every syllable. Enjoy your trip, I said. Oh wait, you can't, because it's not your trip. It was mine, and now it's nobody's. Click. I hung up, and I didn't just turn off my phone. I turned them off. For the rest of the evening, I did nothing. No calls, no texts, no emails, no explanations, just silence. And let me tell you, silence has a sound. It rings in your ears like a long-forgotten lullaby, a symphony of boundaries you never knew you were allowed to set. They wanted Lauren. They could have her. But they'd have to figure out the rest of the trip without me. The next day was blissfully quiet. I turned my phone off and let the outside world burn. No guilt trips, no accusations, no drama. Just me, my coffee, and the sun filtering through the windows like a promise of peace I never knew I needed. I spent the morning sipping that coffee on my back porch, wrapped in the kind of calm that almost felt illegal. And for once, the silence didn't hurt. It healed. My afternoons were filled with small victories. Vacuuming that corner I always ignored, reorganizing my bookshelf, finally fixing the drawer that always stuck. Little things. But they felt big, because for the first time in years, I wasn't fixing them. I was fixing myself. But of course, the silence couldn't last forever. By the third day, curiosity crept in like a nosy neighbor peeking through the blinds. So I turned my phone back on, and there it was, a digital avalanche. Over a dozen voicemails waiting like emotional landmines. I braced myself. The first few were from my mom. Her voice, shaky, hysterical, teetering between rage and desperation. Violet, you need to call me back right now. This has gone too far. I can't believe you're doing this. You've humiliated us. We're your parents. How could you treat us this way? Oh, I don't know, Mom. Maybe start by asking how you treated me. Then came Lauren's messages, and honestly, they were exactly what you'd expect. That classic, entitled tone she's mastered since middle school. This is so petty, even for you. You're ruining everything. Just fix it, Violet. Because of course, when things fall apart, I'm the first person they run to, the one they always expected to put herself last so they could come first. And then finally, my dad. His voice was quieter, but that didn't make it softer. Violet, I don't understand what's happened to you. Call us back so we can sort this out. What's happened to me? Dad, I finally stopped playing the role you cast me in. The final voicemail was longer, my mom again. But this time, her voice had lost that sharp edge. She sounded tired, not sad, not sorry, just exhausted. Violet, she began. We're back at the airport now. The trip is ruined. I hope you're happy with yourself. Your sister is devastated, and your father and I are, well, disappointment doesn't even begin to cover it. Call us when you're ready to talk. Disappointed? That word stung like lemon in a paper cut. But instead of replying, I did something wild. I deleted the voicemails, all of them. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally realized their feelings weren't my job to manage. This wasn't just about one trip. It was about years of being shoved to the side, told to smile while they handed my place at the table to someone else. I sat there as the hours ticked by, letting the silence fill the space their chaos once occupied. And with that silence came clarity. I wasn't their fixer anymore, and I wasn't going to be. Later that evening, just as I settled into the rare quiet of my living room, there was a knock at the door. Grace, of course. She walked in holding 2 cups of coffee, one for me, one for her, and an expression that said, "Girl, I already know." "I heard about what happened," she said casually, setting the coffee down on the table. "Your mom called me yesterday." Typical. My mom had always been skilled at building her little army, recruiting family friends, cousins, church ladies, and now, apparently, Grace, all to guilt me back into line. "And?" I asked, bracing for a lecture. Grace shrugged, then smirked. "I told her you were probably busy and would get back to her when you were ready." I couldn't help it. I laughed. A real one. From deep in my chest. "You're the best." "No," she said, her tone shifting, her eyes dead serious. "You are, because you finally stood up for yourself, and I know how hard that is." Her words landed like a warm blanket around my shoulders. She was right. For years, I bent backward, sacrificed time, money, sanity, all to please people who didn't see me. But not anymore. Grace looked me dead in the eye and said, "Don't let them drag you back down." And just like that, something clicked. The fog that had clouded my judgment, the guilt that used to strangle me like a vine, it loosened. I could breathe again. By the time the weekend rolled around, I felt something strange. Not anger, not sadness, not even pain. Freedom. Freedom from their guilt. Freedom from their expectations. Freedom from being the girl who always cleaned up everyone else's mess. But the story doesn't end there. Because toxic people don't just walk away quietly. And family. They never give up control without a fight. It was Sunday afternoon. The sun outside was calm, golden. You'd never know that on the other end of my phone, a storm was brewing. The call came in, and for the first time in days, I answered. "Dad." His voice came through, low, worn down by the week. "Violet," he began carefully, like someone stepping across cracked glass. "Your mom wanted me to call. She thinks you'll listen to me." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling like it held the answers to a test I never signed up for. "Go on," I said flatly. He let out a sigh, the kind that sounds like it's been aging in his chest for years. "Look," he said, "this has all gotten out of hand. Your mom's upset, Lauren's furious, and, well, it's just a mess. But, Violet," he paused, "you're better than this." There it was, the phrase, the gaslit anthem of the family peacemaker. You're better than this. You're the bigger person. You're the one who holds everything together. I felt my spine stiffen. "Better than what, Dad?" I asked, my voice deceptively calm. "Standing up for myself?" He jumped in quickly. "That's not what I meant. It's just, you've always been the reasonable one, the one who keeps things together. This," he stumbled, "this isn't like you." I let out a laugh, short, bitter, hollow. "You're right," I said. "It's not like me, because for once, I'm not bending over backward to fix what you broke." Silence, just the sound of his breathing. Shaky, defensive. And I wondered, was he finally seeing me? But then he spoke. "You're punishing the whole family over one decision," he said, the edge returning. "Is that really fair?" Fair. He wanted to talk about fair? Fair? I repeated, my voice rising, the dam cracking wide open. "You want to talk about fair, Dad? Was it fair when you and Mom decided I wasn't important enough to be part of the trip I spent years planning? Was it fair when you handed my spot, my work, my sacrifice, to Lauren like it was no big deal? Like I was no big deal?" His voice flinched. "That's not what we were trying to do." It was Sunday afternoon. The sun outside was calm, golden. You'd never know that on the other end of my phone, a storm was brewing. The call came in, and for the first time in days, I answered. "Dad." His voice came through, low, worn down by the week. "Violet," he began, carefully, like someone stepping across cracked glass. "Your mom wanted me to call. She thinks you'll listen to me." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling like it held the answers to a test I never signed up for. Go on, I said flatly. He let out a sigh, the kind that sounds like it's been aging in his chest for years. Look, he said, this has all gotten out of hand. Your mom's upset, Lauren's furious, and well, it's just a mess. But Violet, he paused. You're better than this. There it was, the phrase, the gaslit anthem of the family peacemaker. You're better than this. You're the bigger person. You're the one who holds everything together. I felt my spine stiffen. Better than what, Dad? I asked, my voice deceptively calm. Standing up for myself? He jumped in quickly. That's not what I meant. It's just, you've always been the reasonable one, the one who keeps things together. He stumbled. This isn't like you. I let out a laugh, short, bitter, hollow. You're right, I said. It's not like me, because for once I'm not bending over backward to fix what you broke. Silence, just the sound of his breathing, shaky, defensive, and I wondered, was he finally seeing me? But then he spoke. You're punishing the whole family over one decision, he said, the edge returning. Is that really fair? Fair. He wanted to talk about fair? Fair? I repeated, my voice rising, the dam cracking wide open. You want to talk about fair, Dad? Was it fair when you and Mom decided I wasn't important enough to be part of the trip I spent years planning? Was it fair when you handed my spot, my work, my sacrifice to Lauren like it was no big deal? Like I was no big deal? His voice flinched. That's not what we were trying to do. Then what were you trying to do? I snapped. You thought Lauren needed it more? Of course you did. She always needs more support, more attention, more of everything, and I'm always the one who's expected to give it up for her. He didn't respond. He couldn't, because deep down, he knew it was true, that I was the reliable one, the afterthought, the emotional janitor for a family that never cleaned up after themselves. Finally, he said, I don't know what you want me to say. And that was the truth. I don't need you to say anything, I replied, my voice steady now, calm. I just need you to understand that I'm done being the afterthought. From now on, I come first. There was silence, and then I ended the call. Click. My hand trembled a little, but I didn't regret it. Not for a second. I let myself feel everything, all of it. The rage, the heartbreak, the relief. It wasn't easy, but it felt like the start of something new, something real. I wasn't the fixer anymore, and I wasn't going to be. They could figure out their mess without me. When my parents and Lauren finally returned, I was waiting, not out of obligation, not out of guilt, but because I was ready to finish what they started. When my parents and Lauren finally returned from Europe, I was already there, not hiding, not crying, not waiting for an apology. I was parked in their driveway, sipping my coffee on the porch swing like nothing had happened, but everything had changed. I watched their taxi pull up, 3 worn-out silhouettes dragging suitcases behind them like war survivors. Their faces were a cocktail of exhaustion and thinly veiled rage. Lauren got out first, hair frizzed, attitude intact. Well, she said, crossing her arms with flair, I hope you're happy, Violet. I didn't even flinch. I raised an eyebrow, still seated, sipping slowly. Happy about what? Our trip was a disaster, my mom barked, slamming the car door behind her. We spent the entire week in dingy hotels eating terrible food, and don't even get me started on the tours. Lauren jumped in. Oh wait, there weren't any. She stared at me, eyes blazing. Do you have any idea how embarrassing it was to show up in Paris and be told there was no reservation? I let the complaints wash over me like cheap wine at a bad dinner party. I took another sip. Calm, measured, deadly. Sounds rough, I said. Then I smiled, just a little. But you wanted to take Lauren, remember? I'm sure you all had some great bonding time. That's not the point, my mom snapped, waving her hand like she was shooing away a memory she didn't want to keep. You knew we couldn't afford the kind of trip you planned. You set us up to fail. And that's when I stood, slowly, intentionally. I set my mug down on the small table like I was laying down a weapon. No, Mom, I said, locking eyes with her. I didn't set you up for anything. I planned a trip for the three of us. Something special, something meaningful. I saved for years. I booked every single detail down to the seats on the plane and the view from the hotel room. You're the ones who decided to cut me out. Dad spoke for the first time, stepping forward with that calm, vaguely disappointed tone he loved to use. You didn't have to cancel everything, Violet. That was extreme. Was it? I shot back. Why should I pay for a trip I wasn't even invited to? If Lauren needed it so badly, you should have planned it yourselves. The silence between us thickened, tense, cracking. Lauren rolled her eyes. You're so dramatic. It's just money, Violet. And that was the last straw. No, Lauren, I snapped, my voice sharp and clear. You're so entitled. Do you have any idea how much work and sacrifice went into that trip? Or do you just assume things magically appear for you because someone else takes care of it? Their mouths hung open. For once, there were no comebacks, no snarky remarks, just silence. I've spent years being the responsible one, I continued, the words flooding out like fire. The one who plans everything, holds everything together, makes sure everyone's taken care of, and you've spent just as long taking it all for granted. That's not fair, my mom whispered, but I held up a hand. No, Mom. What's not fair is how you treated me. You chose Lauren, like always. So I chose to stop being your doormat. You didn't want me on the trip, fine, but you don't get to enjoy the benefits of my love, my effort, my hard work without me. I grabbed my bag from the porch swing, threw it over my shoulder. I'm glad you're back safely, I said, turning toward my car, but don't expect things to go back to the way they were. I'm done. Their voices followed me, Mom's, panicked and pleading, Lauren's, scoffing, Dad's, calling my name like it meant something now. But I didn't look back, not this time. The drive home? It was strangely peaceful. No knots in my stomach, no pressure on my chest. For the first time in my life, I felt light. Every visit to their house used to leave me drained, like I'd run an emotional marathon barefoot over broken glass. But this time, I felt powerful, because I had finally said everything I'd been holding in, and I didn't care what they thought about it. When I got home, I made myself a cup of tea, sat on the couch, let the silence wrap around me like a blanket instead of a shroud. I replayed the confrontation in my head, not with regret, but with pride. They'd been so sure I'd fold, that I'd cave, that I'd save the day like always. But I didn't. And watching their stunned, speechless faces as I walked away, that was the real reward. The next day, my phone lit up again. Grace. Of course. How'd it go? She asked, skipping the pleasantries like only a true friend could. I laughed, leaning back against the kitchen counter, replaying the memory in my head like a scene from a film. Exactly like you'd imagine, I said. They're furious, Lauren's pouting, Mom's probably writing a novel-length apology text with a side of manipulation. Grace let out a snort. Let her try, you've got a backbone now, and I'm here to make sure it stays in place. I grinned, real, unfiltered, grateful. Thanks, Grace. I mean it. You've been my rock through all of this. Anytime, she said, her voice softening. Then, after a pause, so, what's next for you? Now that you're not playing family fixer anymore? That question hung in the air like smoke. What was next? For years, my life had revolved around trying to win their approval, around shaping myself into the daughter they wanted, the sister who never complained, the planner, the driver, the do-it-all peacemaker. And now I had space, breath, possibility. I don't know yet, I admitted, staring out the window at the world that felt brand new. But for the first time, I feel like I get to decide. There was a pause. Then Grace smiled through the phone. Sounds like the start of something amazing. And it was. Over the next few weeks, I didn't make any dramatic changes, no big declarations, no Instagrammable, new me moments, just little things, real things. I redecorated my living room, ditched the old hand-me-down furniture from my parents, and bought pieces that felt like me. Earthy tones, soft throws, a rug that I picked out just because it made me smile. I spent my weekends exploring local cafes and parks, tiny places I'd always meant to check out, but never had the time for. I started journaling, but not about what I needed to do for others. This time, I wrote about what I wanted, who I wanted to be, and that felt like an act of revolution. One evening, I sat down with my laptop and opened the spreadsheet I had used to plan the Europe trip, the one filled with hotel bookings, tour confirmations, reservation codes. I expected to feel bitterness, regret, but instead, I felt clarity. That money, that time, that effort, it was never meant to be wasted. It just wasn't meant for them. So I closed the spreadsheet, opened a new browser tab, and typed, "Solo travel ideas for women." Weeks later, I booked it. Italy, not the same itinerary I'd planned for the family, not a revenge trip, not a watch me now performance. This one was just for me, a celebration of everything I had survived and everything I was becoming. When I landed in Rome, something shifted in me. The air smelled like espresso and basil and history. And for once, there was no plan, no schedule, no family to please, no sibling tantrums to manage, just me, my suitcase, my journal, and the streets of a city that didn't know my name, but already felt like home. I wandered cobblestone alleys with no destination, ate pasta alone in tiny cafes without shame, stood in awe beneath ancient columns that had outlasted empires, reminding me that broken things can still be beautiful. One afternoon, I sat on the Spanish steps with a gelato in hand and pulled out my journal. I flipped past the pages filled with obligations, expectations, all the things I used to write for them, and I started a new list. What Violet wants: learn a new language, start a small business, travel to at least 5 more countries, say no without guilt, fall in love, but only with someone who chooses me first, live freely, without apology. As I wrote, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: hope. On my last night in Florence, I had dinner at a small family-run restaurant overlooking the Arno River. The sky was painted in soft oranges and pinks, like a watercolor of peace. I sipped red wine slowly, soaking it all in. This trip wasn't just about healing, it was about rebirth. I had spent years trying to earn my family's approval, years contorting myself into the version of Violet they wanted. But here, thousands of miles away, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I realized something. I didn't need their permission to be enough. I already was. When I returned home, the suitcase still heavy with souvenirs and the scent of Italian air, my phone lit up again. But this time, the tone had changed. No more firestorms, no more demands, just quiet messages, tired ones. From Mom, "Hope you had a nice trip. Maybe we can all talk soon." I stared at the screen for a long time, thumb hovering over the reply button. But I wasn't ready. And that was okay, because for the first time in forever, I wasn't answering out of obligation. This time, it would be on my terms. I unpacked slowly, savoring the final traces of freedom that still clung to my clothes. A silk scarf I bought in Florence, a pressed flower from a Roman park, a tiny notebook filled with dreams I never dared write down until now. I placed my souvenirs on the shelf like trophies, not of what I'd seen, but of who I'd become. 1 week after returning, the phone rang again. "Mom." I hesitated. Then, I picked up. Her voice came through, softer than I'd ever heard it. "Hi, Violet," she began. "How was your trip?" "It was amazing," I said flatly, keeping my tone neutral, calm, detached. "That's good to hear," she replied, then paused, like she was trying to find the words she should have said years ago. "We've been thinking a lot about what happened," she finally said. Maybe we handled things poorly." I froze. Poorly? That word was doing so much heavy lifting. It was practically collapsing under the weight. "Poorly is an understatement," I said. "You replaced me on a trip I paid for, without asking, without even telling me until the morning of. And let's not forget the years before that." She was quiet. Then, almost in a whisper, "I know." Her voice wavered. "Your dad and we didn't realize how much it would hurt you. And Lauren," I cut in, "does she feel bad?" Or is she still blaming me for ruining her vacation? She's upset, my mom admitted. But I think she knows now she could have handled things better. Could have, not did. I sighed, leaning against the counter. Mom, this wasn't just about the trip. It was about years of putting her first. Years of treating me like the backup plan, the extra, the one who makes everything happen but never gets the credit. There was a long pause. I understand, she said finally. We're going to try to do better. We don't want to lose you. Those words tugged at something buried deep inside me. And yet, they weren't enough. Because I'd heard versions of this before. Apologies that didn't come with action. Promises that evaporated in daylight. I'm glad to hear that, I said carefully. But it's going to take more than words to fix this. I need to see real effort, not just apologies. You will, she promised. We'll give you the space you need. But I hope you'll let us back in someday. I didn't respond right away, because even though I'd been starving for that kind of acknowledgement for years, I'd also learned something vital on those cobblestone streets of Italy. Their healing wasn't my responsibility. In the months that followed, I kept my boundaries firm. I replied to texts when I felt like it. I answered calls when I had the energy. But I didn't go out of my way to soothe their guilt. I didn't rush to fix, or rescue, or explain. I focused on rebuilding something else. Me. I signed up for a photography class, something I'd always dreamed of but never dared prioritize. I joined a local hiking group and made new friends, real friends, people who didn't see me as the reliable one, but as a whole person with joy, limits, and a story. I even started planning my next solo trip, Portugal this time, or maybe Morocco, and each step I took, it felt like reclaiming another piece of the girl I used to be before I was buried under everyone else's expectations. One afternoon, I sat on my porch watching the sunset, orange and lavender clouds swirling above my quiet little street, and I realized how far I'd come. I wasn't the violet who bent until she broke. I wasn't the girl who smiled while she was being sidelined. I was someone new, someone free, someone who had finally learned to put herself first. And for once, that was enough.